Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the entire history of ancient Rome, that sprawling beast of an empire that chewed up civilizations and spat out legends. But imagine this. Did you know that Rome's founders were supposedly suckled by a wolf, only for one brother to murder the other over a city's invisible lines? A fratricide that set the tone for 2 millennia of betrayal. What if the greatest empire in history began not with grand decrees, but with the desperate cries of abandoned infants echoing along a muddy riverbank, their tiny mouths tasting not mother's milk but the wild, gamey warmth from a she-wolf's teat? And here's the creepier part. Historians still debate if this tale was pure propaganda cooked up centuries later to glorify a ragtag village of outlaws, or if there's a kernel of truth in those divine claims that Mars himself fathered the twins, making Rome's origin story feel like a twisted fairy tale worse than any modern true crime podcast binge. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little time machine reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel the chill first, that damp bite of the Tiber's fog seeping into your bones as you crouch low on the riverbank, the mud squelching under your bare feet like cold, living flesh sucking at your skin, and the air carries the sharp tang of wet wool from distant shepherd huts, a smell that clings to everything here in this wild patch of Latium where hills rise like hunched beasts against the pre-dawn sky. Your heart pounds as you witness it unfold, the basket bobbing in the current, 2 tiny forms inside wriggling against the reeds, their cries piercing the mist like accusations abandoned by order of a jealous king. Amulius, who feared these god-born boys would topple his throne. And isn't it ironic how even in antiquity, family politics turned deadly faster than a reality TV feud? You inch closer, the water lapping at your toes with an icy insistence. And there she is, the she-wolf. Her eyes gleaming like torchlight in the gloom. Not some gentle nursemaid, but a feral creature with matted fur reeking of blood and earth. Her teats swollen as she nudges the infants close, their lips latching on with desperate hunger, tasting that strange metallic warmth mixed with the iron bite of survival itself, a flavour that lingers on your tongue as if you're sharing the moment. Historians argue endlessly about this. Was the lupa really a wolf, or a sly euphemism for a prostitute? Since lupa meant both in Latin slang, turning the noble origin into something seedier, like a cover-up for illegitimate births in a society obsessed with purity. You watch as the shepherd Faustulus stumbles upon them later, his rough hands scooping the boys from the den, his woolen cloak damp and heavy, wrapping them against the wind that whispers prophecies of greatness. And you feel the injustice already. These divine twins raised as rustics, herding sheep under a sun that bakes the clay soil into cracked wounds. As years pass in this dreamlike haze, you shadow Romulus and Remus growing strong, their bodies hardening from labour, the sweat on their skin mixing with the dust of the Palatine Hill, where they plot their revenge, learning of their royal blood from whispers around campfires that flicker like uncertain torchlight, casting long shadows that mutate into omens of fratricide. You taste the iron again, sharper now, as they return to Alba Longa, overthrowing Amulius in a blur of violence, the air thick with the coppery scent of spilled blood. But peace doesn't last. Oh no, sibling rivalry festers like an untreated wound. You stand atop the hill with them, the wind whipping wet wool against your legs from a recent rain, as Romulus ploughs the sacred boundary, the furrow deep and symbolic, a line in the earth that screams mine. And when Remus leaps over it in mockery, laughing at the invisible wall, you feel the tension coil like a spring, the brothers' jest turning fatal as Romulus strikes, the blow landing with a sickening thud, fraternal blood soaking the soil, chilling the dawn air and staining the foundation of what will become Rome in 753 BCE, or so the legends claim, though dates wobble in academic debates, some pushing it back or forward based on archaeological scraps that hint at earlier settlements. Isn't it absurd that early Romans used pig bladders inflated as flotation devices for crossing rivers? A quirky tidbit from those primitive days when survival meant improvising with animal guts. Much like how you'd MacGyver your way out of a camping disaster today, you empathise with Remus, his body crumpling, the shock in his eyes mirroring your own creeping dread. this act of kinslaying setting a precedent for Rome's future, where ambition devours loyalty like a wolf at a carcass. And zoom out for a moment, the hills undulating like breathing giants under the rising sun, the Tiber snaking silver below, a river that will carry empires on its back. But the city rises from this gore, ye helping Romulus gather outlaws and exiles, the air buzzing with desperate men seeking asylum, their clothes ragged and stinking of sweat and fear, building thatched huts that leak in the rain, the wet wool motif returning as cloaks drip endlessly. A sensory struggle against the elements that grinds down spirits. You invite neighbours to festivals, only for the rape of the Sabine women to erupt. A horrifying grab where Roman men seize brides amid screams and chaos, the injustice clawing at your chest like thorns, women torn from families in a bid for population growth, and sarcastically, it's like the worst blind date setup in history, engineered for empire building rather than love. Factual threads weave in this assimilation tactic, absorbing Sabines through marriage, foreshadowed Rome's genius for incorporating conquered peoples, turning enemies into citizens, a strategy that outlasted brute force, yet the sadness lingers, those women's muffled sobs echoing in the night, their lives upended for a city's survival, and you wonder if progress always demands such personal horrors. As kings succeed, Romulus Numa Pompilius establishing rituals, his pious reforms calming the gods with temples where incense battles the reek of animal sacrifices, you feel the shift, the iron taste evolving from blood to the clang of early tools forging a community. Tullus Hostilius brings war, his triplets combat against Alba Longa's champions a spectacle of brotherly echoes, the Horatian and Curatia fighting till one stands, wounded and weary, the pain radiating through your own limbs as if you're there, dodging spears. Ancus Marcius builds bridges, the wooden creek over the Tiber a symbol of connection, but the wet wool persists in rainy campaigns, soldiers shivering in expansion's name. You ponder the debate, did these kings really exist, or were they retrofitted myths to legitimize later republics, a historical fudge like editing your social media history to look more heroic? Modern comparison hits, it's akin to startup founders mythologizing garage beginnings, ignoring the messy failures. Tarquinius Priscus introduces Etruscan flair, sewers draining swamps into the Cloaca Maxima, the filth sluicing away but leaving a lingering stench that creeps into your nostrils, a reminder that civilization rests on taming waste. Servius Tullius's census divides by wealth. The class stings sharp as you imagine plebeians tallied like cattle, their resentment brewing. Finally, Tarquin the Proud's tyranny peaks with Lucretia's tragedy, her violations sparking rebellion, the psychological chill of her suicide note demanding vengeance freezing the air as Brutus leads the charge. Expelling kings in 509 BCE, the torchlight now flaring in revolutionary fires, you stand amid the forum's nascent stones, the blood of monarchy drying. But the fraternal chill returns, mutated into civic strife's cold grip, as the Republic's dawn breaks with promises and perils. The she-wolf's shadow stretches long over the hills, her milk souring into Empire's ambitious thirst, leaving you with a quiet terror what monsters lurk in foundation myths. Did you ever wonder why Rome's early kings built their legacy on foundations as shaky as clay baked in the sun, only for tyranny to creep in like thorns hidden in a crown, pricking deeper with each passing rain until the whole structure bled? You emerge from the dawn's chill on the Palatine Hill, the mud from the Tiber still caking your feet, now hardening into a gritty crust that irritates your skin like an unrelenting itch. And the air hangs heavy with the filth of thatched huts clustered like warts on the landscape, their roofs leaking rainwater that soaks woolen cloaks into sodden weights pulling at your shoulders. A sensory burden that mirrors the growing pains of this fledgling city, where outlaws and refugees huddle for warmth around sputtering fires. The torchlight flickers weakly now, mutated from the revolutionary blaze into dim embers that cast elongated shadows across the faces of men who followed Romulus, their eyes hollow with the hunger of building something from nothing. And you taste the iron again, not of blood this time, but of crude tools hammering at stone, the metallic tang filling your mouth as if you're chewing on the raw ambition that drives them. Numa Pompilius ascends next, a pious king whose reforms feel like a balm at first, establishing temples where incense battles the reek of animal sacrifices, the smoke curling into your nostrils with a cloying sweetness that masks the underlying rot of superstition. And isn't it sarcastic how this wise ruler created the Pontifex Maximus role, a chief priest gig that future emperors would twist into absolute power, much like how modern CEOs cloak greed in corporate spirituality retreats? You participate in the rituals he mandates, your hands sticky with sacrificial blood as you invoke the gods for Pax Deorum, the peace with divinities that Romans believed kept disaster at bay. But the injustice gnaws at you, the common folk bearing the brunt of omens and auguries, their lives dictated by bird flights or entrails. A shocking element when you realize how many died in wars justified by such whims. Historians debate if Numa was real, or a later invention to legitimize religious control, a retroactive saint in a lineup of warriors. But factually, his calendar reforms divided time into months we still use, though ironically mangled by later additions like July and August. You feel the empathy for the priests, their robes heavy with wet wool after rain-soaked ceremonies, struggling against the elements as Tullus Hostilius takes the throne, a warlike king whose expansions turn the air acrid with smoke from burning villages, the cold pain of marching barefoot over rocky terrain biting into your souls like accusations. In the clash with Alba Longa, you witness the absurd tidbit of the Horatian Curiati triplets dueling as proxies, their swords clanging with familial echoes, 3 brothers against 3, until one Horatius stands victorious but wounded, his sister's grief over a slain Curiati fiancé leading to her execution. A sad twist where loyalty fractures like brittle clay, and you ponder the modern parallel. It's like family feuds amplified by reality TV, where personal loss gets sacrificed for the greater good. The wind carries whispers of tyranny already, pricking your skin as Ancus Marcius builds the first bridge across the Tiber, its wooden planks creaking under your weight, opening trade but also invasion paths. The river's damp chill seeping up to numb your legs. You zoom out poetically, the 7 hills rising like watchful sentinels under a stormy sky, their slopes slick with mud that slides treacherous underfoot, symbolizing the slippery slope of power. Tarquinius Priscus, the Etruscan outsider, dazzles with projects like the Circus Maximus, where chariot races thunder, dust choking your throat amid cheers. But his drainage of the Forum swamp reveals bones of forgotten dead, a creepy realism that hints at buried secrets. The wet wool motif mutates into sodden tunics during construction, labourers' backs aching from hauling stone, their sweat mixing with filth in a sensory struggle that breeds resentment. Servius Tullius's wall encircles the hills, a defensive ring that feels like a noose tightening, his census counting you among the classes based on armour you can afford, the poor relegated to slings and stones, an injustice that stings sharper than thorns. You empathise with the plebeians, their calloused hands raw from building what protects the elite, and sarcastically, it's like today's tax brackets, where the rich get loopholes while you foot the bill. The factual pivot this century at Assembly organised military votes, laying groundwork for Republican politics, though debates rage on whether Servius was assassinated or mythologised. Tarquin the Proud's reign darkens everything, his arrogance manifesting in the massive temple of Jupiter, workers collapsing under loads, the air thick with dust that irritates your eyes like unshed tears. You witness Lucretia's violation by his son, her body trembling as she recounts the horror, the psychological chill freezing your veins as she stabs herself, blood pooling warm and sticky, demanding vengeance that ignites rebellion. Lucius Junius Brutus, feigning stupidity to survive an absurd historical tidbit, like playing dumb in a toxic workplace, leads the charge, his torchlight now a blazing signal of overthrow, shadows dancing wildly as kings flee. The crowns of iron crumble to clay feet exposed, tyranny's whispers evolving into roars of freedom, but the pain lingers in your pricked skin, a reminder that power's thorns never fully retract. You stand amid the exiled royals' echoes, the Forum's stones cold underfoot, wondering if this birth of republic will heal or merely mutate the wounds. You ever ponder how a republic born from kingly blood could fracture so quickly into class warfare, where the sweat of the masses soaked sacred ground in protest, a strike that made patrician noses wrinkle at the stench of rebellion rising like forge smoke, the Forum's stones press cold against your bare souls now, still slick from last night's rain that leaves your tunic clinging like wet wool mutated into a smothering second skin, heavy and chafing as you navigate the crowded marketplace where vendors hawk olives and grain. their voices a cacophony blending with the iron clang of blacksmith hammers nearby, the metallic bite on your tongue sharpening as if tasting the resentment forging in every strike. The Republic's raw birth pangs hit you full force, the air thick with the injustice of patricians lording over plebeians, those hereditary nobles clutching power like a miser his coins, while you, embodying the common folk, feel the gnawing hunger from debts that chain families to endless toil, your back aching from imaginary fields ploughed under threat of bondage. Lucius Junius Brutus's ghost lingers here, revisited from the monarchy's fall, but with a twist his feigned madness that saved him now mutates into the Senate's calculated sanity, where consuls veto each other to prevent tyranny, yet patricians dominate, their vetoes shielding wealth, while plebeians bleed in wars without reward. A shocking element as soldiers return from battles against Etruscans, only to find homes seized for unpaid loans. The sadness welling in your chest like bile. You march with the plebeians to the Sacred Mount, 3 miles from Rome, the path rocky and unforgiving, stones cutting into your feet in a sensory struggle that mirrors their grievances, sweat pouring down your brow to soak the earth, mixing with dust into a muddy paste that cakes your legs, and sarcastically, it's like the first recorded general strike, predating unions by millennia, worse than a modern walkout, where at least you get coffee breaks. Factual threads emerge in 494 BCE. This secession forces concessions, creating tribunes of the plebs, sacrosanct officials who can veto harmful laws. Their bodies untouchable under pain of divine curse. A clever safeguard that turns the people's voice into a shield. Historians still argue whether this was a single event or a series of secessions, some claiming later embellishments to glorify plebeian resolve. But the absurdity shines in how Romans use sacred geese, yes, temple birds, whose honks once saved the Capitoline from Gauls to symbolize vigilance. An odd tidbit like relying on pets for national security in today's alarm systems. You huddle on the mount, the wind whipping cold injustice across your skin, empathizing with families clustered around meager fires, their torchlight now flickering uncertainly, mutated into signals of defiance that dance like accusing fingers toward the distant city walls. The patricians panic, sending envoys with honeyed words, but you sense the burn of inequality hotter than those forge fires, where laws remain unwritten secrets controlled by nobles, judgments twisted to favor the elite, leaving plebeians at mercy of arbitrary whims, a creepy realism in how justice felt like a rigged game. Much like scrolling through algorithm-fed social media today, where the powerful curate truth zoom out poetically, the 7 hills blurring into a hazy silhouette under the setting sun. Rivers of sweat tracing paths down the mount like tears of a weary giant. The landscape itself weeping for balance. Physical action surges as negotiations drag, your stomach rumbling from sparse rations, the pain of hunger clawing inward while patricians feast in marble halls, their indifference a thorn deeper than any battlefield wound. A breakthrough comes with the creation of the 12 tables, laws etched on bronze and posted publicly around 450 BCE, a step toward transparency where even you can read prohibitions against debt slavery or unfair burials. But the irony drips like sarcasm. These codes still favor patricians, banning intermarriage between classes, a sad barrier that keeps bloodlines pure at the cost of unity. Evoking modern debates on equality laws that sound progressive but hide loopholes, you trace the inscriptions with calloused fingers, the metal cool and unyielding, tasting iron dust on your lips as debates rage over enforcement. Some scholars questioning if the tables were influenced by Greek codes or purely Roman invention. The Gallic sack interrupts progress. Brennus's Celts sweeping in 390 BCE after the Allia River defeat. Flames devouring huts as you flee to the Capitoline. The air acrid with burning thatch. Wet wool steaming in the heat. Your heart pounding in terror as geese honk the alarm, saving the citadel in a twist of fate that mutates Romulus's wolf legend into avian saviors. Empathy floods for the sacked citizens, rebuilding from ashes with stronger walls, the psychological chill of invasion lingering like frost on skin. Yet resilience blooms as Rome absorbs Latins, granting partial citizenship in a genius of inclusion that swells legions. Modern comparison, it's akin to post-disaster recovery funds, where aid rebuilds but inequalities persist. Patricians hoarding while plebeians labour. You stand vigil as reforms creep in. The Licinian Sextian laws of 367 BCE opening consulships to plebeians. A physical event of triumphant elections where your vote in assemblies feels empowering, though wealth still sways outcomes. The burn of injustice cooling slightly but never extinguishing. The sensory struggle evolves, forge fires now symbolizing tempered strength, their heat forging alliances against Samnites in grueling wars, your muscles straining in imaginary phalanxes, shields clashing with a resonant iron peel. Shocking still is how plebeians gain priesthoods, breaking religious monopolies, but sadness tints it generations suffered before change. Lives ground down like grain under millstones. Sarcasm whispers Rome's equality moved slower than bureaucracy today. Paperwork piling like unanswered emails. Academic uncertainty swirls around the exact triggers of these reforms, some attributing them to economic pressures rather than pure idealism. As conflicts mount with neighbours, the torchlight steadies into beacons on new walls, mutated once more into symbols of fragile unity, leaving you with a chill. How long before class fissures crack this republic wide open? You ever consider how a single general could march war beasts over frozen peaks, turning Rome's vaunted legions into shivering wrecks, with elephant trumpets echoing like death knells in the snow? A campaign so audacious it still baffles experts who debate if Hannibal's hatred was born from his father's oath or pure Carthaginian grit. The alpine wind howls first, whipping icy flakes against your face like tiny blades, numbing your cheeks as you trudge upward through knee-deep snow that crunches underfoot with a brittle snap, the cold seeping into your bones like an uninvited guest refusing to leave, and the air carries a sharp, animal musk from the massive grey shapes lumbering ahead, their trunks swinging pendulously, steam rising from their hides in ghostly wisps that mutate the distant torchlight once revolutionary fires, now flickering lanterns strapped to packs, casting elongated shadows that dance monstrously on the white expanse. You embody Hannibal's weary soldiers, your woolen cloak sodden from melting snow, heavy and clinging like a shroud that chafes raw skin underneath, the sensory struggle intensifying as blisters form on your feet from endless marching, each step a jolt of pain radiating up your legs, while the iron taste returns, bitter on your tongue from chewing frozen rations laced with the metallic tang of desperation. Hannibal himself rides nearby, revisited from whispers of his boyhood oath at 9 years old, swearing eternal enmity to Rome before a Carthaginian altar, but with a twist historians argue if this dramatic vow was real, or later propaganda by Roman writers to demonize him, painting the Barca family as vengeful fanatics rather than strategic geniuses defending their trade empire. You feel the empathy for the elephants, those absurd tidbits of history where handlers used heated pokers to goad them forward. Imagine creatures from African savannas, their thick skins cracking in the frost, trumpeting in agony as many succumb to the chill, their massive bodies tumbling into ravines with earth-shaking thuds, a sad element that tugs at your heart amid the horror of men freezing beside them, fingers blackening from frostbite. The physical event unfolds in the descent, your group bursting into Italy like a storm, surprising Roman scouts who scatter in panic, their reports dismissed as exaggerations back in the Senate where complacency reigns. And sarcastically, it's like underestimating a viral trend until it crashes your servers, Rome's pride trampling itself worse than any modern corporate blunder. Factual moments slip in. The First Punic War's naval defeats had forced Carthage to cede Sicily in 241 BCE, breeding resentment that fueled Hannibal's invasion in 218 BCE, crossing with 37 elephants and 40,000 men. Though only a handful of beasts survived the Alps, their shadows now symbolic of overreach. You clash at the Trebia River, the water icy and swift, numbing your limbs as you ambush Roman forces lured into a trap, the clash of shields resounding with iron peels, blood staining the snow pink in swirling eddies, the shocking carnage where 20,000 Romans fall, their screams muffled by wind, leaving you chilled not just from cold, but from the creeping dread of endless war. Zoom out poetically, the Alps receding like jagged teeth gnawing at the sky, rivers below threading silver veins through valleys where fate weaves tighter knots. The sensory struggle peaks at Lake Trasimene, fog rolling thick and clammy over your skin like a living veil. blinding Roman legions as Hannibal's troops encircle them, the wet wool of your gear steaming in the humid trap, swords slashing through mist with wet thwacks, the iron taste mixing with lake water splashed in your mouth during the rout, 15,000 slain in hours. Flaminius's head severed as a trophy, a creepy realism in how nature conspired with strategy. Modern comparison strikes, it's akin to a surprise audit catching a company off guard. Panic spreading faster than bad news on social media. You press on to Cannae in 216 BCE, the sun-baked plain a stark contrast to alpine snows. Dust choking your throat as Hannibal's double envelopment unfolds, his centre feigning retreat to draw Romans in, then cavalry wheeling back to crush them. The heat baking sweat into salt crusts on your brow, the pain of compressed ranks where men suffocate in the press, unable to swing arms, a horrifying vice that claims 50,000 lives in one day, the fields slick with fluids that squelch underfoot, empathy overwhelming for survivors like Varro, fleeing in disgrace. Sarcasm drips Rome's invincible legions, outmaneuvered by a foreigner who studied their tactics better than they did, like hacking your own security system. Academic debate lingers on Cannae's numbers, some say exaggerated by Roman historians to heighten the drama. Others cite archaeological bone pits as proof of the slaughter's scale. The torchlight motif mutates into bonfires of the dead, flames licking high as Hannibal roams Italy for years, defectors joining him from disgruntled allies, the injustice of Roman conscription biting back as farmers abandon fields, famine gnawing at bellies like an internal beast. You witness the Fabian strategy, delaying tactics that frustrate Hannibal, his supplies dwindling, the cold of winters without conquest numbing resolve. Yet Rome raises army after army, their resilience a sad testament to human stubbornness. Physical twists come in Scipio's counterstrike, invading Africa to force Hannibal home. The Battle of Zama in 202 BCE, where Roman cavalry turns the tables, elephants charging back into Carthaginian lines in chaos, their panicked trumpets a symphony of defeat, your heart racing as Hannibal flees, the Second Punic War ending with Carthage humbled, paying indemnities that cripple their power. Shocking still is how close Rome came to collapse. Senators debating surrender after Cannae, only pride prevailing. The wet wool dries into stiff armour of victory, but the chill persists, mutated into the cold calculation of an empire, leaving you pondering what shadows linger when beasts are tamed. Yet the bitterness of loss freezes ambition's core. You ever imagine the bitter irony of salting your enemy's field so thoroughly that nothing grows for generations? A curse born from victory's greed that twists in your gut like a poisoned blade. Especially when Rome's mastery over the Mediterranean came at the cost of turning vibrant cities into ghost towns haunted by flames. The acrid smoke assaults you first, thick and choking as it curls from Carthage's smouldering ruins, stinging your eyes with a burning haze that blurs the horizon where the sea meets the scorched earth, the ground under your feet hot and ashy, crunching like brittle bones with each step. While the salt they've sown, piles of it glittering cruelly in the sun, crusts your sandals and bites into minor cuts on your skin, a sensory struggle that mirrors the deeper wound of expansion's insatiable hunger gnawing at your insides. You stand amid the Third Punic War's aftermath in 146 BCE, embodying a Roman soldier weary from siege, your woolen tunic damp with sweat and sea spray, heavy as wet wool mutated into a salt-stiffened armour that chafes against raw flesh, the iron taste sharp on your tongue from licking dry lips caked with dust and victory's metallic afterbite, as if chewing on the chains that once bound Carthaginian prisoners now paraded in triumph. Hannibal's shadow lingers here, revisited from the Alpine horrors, but with a surprising twist after Zama's defeat. He fled to exile, advising Eastern kings against Rome before poisoning himself to avoid capture. His legendary hatred fizzling into a sad suicide that underscores how even titans crumble under empire's weight. The physical event erupts in the siege itself. You manning the walls as Scipio Aemilianus encircles the city, catapults hurling stones that thud into adobe with bone-jarring impacts, your arms aching from hauling ropes, the heat from Greek fire prototypes scorching your face as defenders pour boiling oil, screams piercing the air in a shocking cacophony that echoes the desperation of 50,000 survivors sold into slavery. factually woven in Rome, provoked this war over trivial disputes, blockading Carthage until they surrendered weapons, then demanding the city's abandonment, a betrayal that ignited final resistance, leading to house-to-house fighting where women hurled roof tiles. Their defiance a sad element that tugs at your empathy amid the horror. Sarcasm creeps in now, the civilizing Romans, salting the earth as if to say, no rebirth for you. Like a petty ex blocking you on every platform after a breakup, ensuring nothing grows back. Historians debate the salting's extent, some call it legend, exaggerated by later writers to symbolize utter destruction. While archaeology shows Carthage rebuilt under Rome, fertile lands recovering despite the myth. You feel the flames lick closer, heat blistering your skin in waves, the absurd tidbit emerging in how Romans used vinegar-soaked sponges on poles to extinguish fires. A quirky firefighting hack predating modern extinguishers by centuries, yet futile against the inferno that consumes libraries of Punic knowledge, lost forever in a cultural arson worse than deleting history's hard drive. Modern comparison hits hard. It's akin to corporate takeovers, where the victor strips assets and salts the brand, leaving employees as collateral damage in boardroom wars. The torchlight motif mutates into funeral pyres dotting the landscape, flames dancing wildly at night, casting grotesque shadows on skeletal walls, where starvation hollowed defenders' cheeks. The psychological chill settling as you witness children sacrificed in Moloch's rites for divine aid that never came, a creepy realism in pagan desperation clashing with Roman pragmatism. Zoom out poetically, the Mediterranean sprawling like a vast, indifferent blue shroud, waves lapping at salted shores as if whispering forgotten names, the sea's rhythm a lullaby to buried empires. Expansion's greed twists deeper as you sail eastward, winds whipping salt spray into your face, numbing lips while iron chains rattle below deck with captives bound for Italian farms. Their moans a haunting undertone to Rome's growing dominion. In Greece, you march with legions against Macedonian phalanxes at Cynocephaly in 197 BCE, spears clashing with resonant peals, your shield arm bruising from impacts, the pain radiating like greed's relentless pull as Philip V's forces shatter, his kingdom carved into client states. A shocking turn where Hellenistic grandeur bows to Roman boots. Empathy swells for the Greeks, their philosophers carted off as spoils, irony dripping as Rome liberates them from tyrants only to impose heavier taxes, much like colonial powers claiming benevolence while extracting wealth. The sensory struggle evolves in Syrian sands against Antiochus III, the Battle of Magnesia in 190 BCE, where cataphracts charge, dust clouding vision and coating your throat, the wet wool drying into gritty stiffness under desert sun, your gut twisting with dysentery from tainted water, a common soldier's plight amid glory. Academic uncertainty swirls around these conquests. Did Rome intend empire, or did alliances drag them in? Scholars arguing defensive imperialism versus aggressive opportunism. You plunder Pergamon's libraries, scrolls heavy in your arms, their ink scent mixing with blood, absurdly including recipes for elephant stew from campaigns past, a fascinating remnant of logistical woes. Sadness lingers in Corinth's sack that same year as Carthage's fall. Flames devouring temples, molten bronze pooling like tears, the injustice of cultural erasure for economic gain chilling your spine. Physical twists come in naval dominance, you rowing triremes across waves that slam hulls with jarring force, oars blistering palms, as Rome's Corvus boarding devices turn sea battles into infantry slaughters, securing Mare Nostrum. Sarcasm whispers Mediterranean mastery. Sure, but at what cost? Endless wars bankrupting the treasury, like funding a luxury yacht by maxing credit cards. The salted earth crunches underfoot as you return westward, greed's knife twisting with each step, leaving you with a mood shift if victory tastes this ashy. What horrors await when the sea's vastness turns inward on Rome itself? You ever question how brothers sworn to reform could end up with their blood pooling on Forum marble? A shocking statistic revealing that the Greci's deaths marked the first political murders in Rome for centuries, igniting a chain of violence that would devour the Republic like a self-inflicted wound festering under the sun. The Forum's dust kicks up first, gritty and choking as it swirls around your ankles in the midday heat, coating your throat with a dry rasp that makes every breath a laboured rasp, the air thick with the mingled scents of unwashed crowds and baking stone, while your sandals grind against the uneven pavement, each step sending jolts of discomfort up your legs, as if the ground itself resents the weight of growing unrest. You weave through the throng of toga-clad citizens, their woolen garments damp with sweat despite the dry wind, mutated now from earlier wet wool into a sticky, clinging fabric that irritates your skin like an insistent rash, the iron taste returning sharply on your tongue from biting back words in heated debates echoing off the basilicas, as if chewing on the bitter edge of social divide that sharpens with every passing day. Tiberius Gracchus stands before you, a figure revisited from the Republic's plebeian struggles, but with a twist once a noble war hero from the Punic campaigns. His experiences in Spain exposed him to landless veterans begging for scraps, mutating his patrician blood into a reformer's zeal that shocks the elite. His proposal to redistribute public land from wealthy hoarders to the poor, feeling like a dagger to the Senate's heart. The physical event erupts in the assembly, you pushing forward through the crowd as Tiberius speaks, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade, hands gesturing emphatically while senators heckle from the sidelines, the tension coiling in your chest as violence brews, fists clenching involuntarily at the injustice of vast estates worked by slaves while Roman citizens starve in urban slums, their hollow eyes mirroring your own creeping empathy for the displaced farmers whose calloused hands ache from fruitless labour. Factually integrated in 133 BCE, Tiberius's Lex Agraria aimed to enforce old laws limiting landholdings to 500 jugera, redistributing excess to smallholders, a bold move funded by Pergamon's bequeathed wealth, but the Senate's opposition led to his tribune colleague vetoing it, prompting Tiberius to depose him illegally. A shocking breach that shattered Mos Maiorum, the ancestral customs Romans revered like sacred relics. Sarcasm slips in softlier. The noble Senate, guardians of tradition, clutching their villas tighter than a miser his gold, much like modern lobbyists blocking reforms that threaten their portfolios, ensuring the rich stay richer, while the rest scrape by on crumbs. You feel the sensory struggle intensify as the vote nears, the sun beating down to bake sweat into salty rivulets that sting your eyes, dust clinging to damp skin in a gritty paste that itches unbearably, your muscles tensing as clubs appear in opponents' hands, the absurd tidbit emerging in how Romans used voting urns shaped like amphorae. But here chaos overrides procedure, Tiberius touching his head in the ancient signal for danger, a gesture lost in the melee. The shocking element hits as the brawl explodes, senators and their thugs charging the rostra, you dodging blows that crack against shields, Tiberius stumbling amid the fray, his skull crushed by a bench leg wielded like a weapon, blood spilling warm and sticky onto the marble steps, staining them in irregular pools that reflect the distorted faces of killers, a sad tableau where brotherly reform dies with him. Over 300 supporters slain and dumped in the Tiber, their bodies bloating in the current like forgotten grievances. Academic debate swirls around the motives. Was Tiberius a genuine populist or a demagogue seeking power? Scholars arguing his methods foreshadowed tyranny, while others see him as a martyr against inequality. Evidence from Appian's accounts tilting toward idealism but clouded by bias. Modern comparison resonates. It's like whistleblowers exposing corporate greed, only to face smear campaigns and worse. Their voices silenced in boardroom ambushes far subtler than clubs, but no less deadly. You retreat to the shadows as night falls. Torchlight flickering now mutated into funeral pyres along the riverbank, flames licking high and casting eerie glows on grieving faces, the iron taste mixing with bile in your throat from witnessing such fratricidal fury. Empathy deepening for Sempronia, the Gracchi mother, her stoic grief a pillar amid ruin. Gaius Gracchus emerges years later, his brother's ghost haunting him with a twist. He pursues even bolder reforms in 123 BCE. You joining his campaigns as he establishes grain subsidies for the urban poor, the air in the forum now humming with hope and hostility, your stomach rumbling in solidarity with the masses queuing for subsidized bread, the scent of fresh loaves battling the underlying filth of overcrowded streets where disease crawls like an unseen predator. Physical twists unfold in his colonial projects. you sailing to found Junonia on Carthage's cursed site. Salt still crunching underfoot in a mocking reminder of past vengeance. Winds whipping your face roar as storms batter the fleet. Omens interpreted as divine wrath against hubris. The sensory pain of saltwater sores blistering your lips, while iron chains rattle on ships carrying hopeful settlers. Sarcasm whispers Rome's generous reforms, doling out crumbs while senators feast on exotic imports, akin to today's welfare debates where aid is labelled entitlement by those who've never missed a meal. The shocking backlash builds as Gaius pushes citizenship for Italians, alienating allies. You standing guard as riots erupt, clubs swinging again in echoes of Tiberius's fate, the Capitoline becoming a fortress where Gaius holds up, his final stand ending in suicide to avoid capture, his head bountied with gold equal to its weight, a gruesome tidbit where the bearer stuffed it with lead to cheat the scale. Absurdity in greed's petty tricks amid tragedy. Sadness overwhelms as 3,000 followers perish in purges, bodies desecrated, the injustice aching like open sores on society's body, your skin crawling with the chill of normalized violence. Zoom out poetically, the forum sprawling like a scarred battlefield under moonlight. Fissures in marble tracing veins of discontent that pulse with unspoken rage. The Tiber murmuring secrets of the drowned. You ponder the Gracchi's legacy, their blood-seeding civil strife, academic uncertainty on whether their failures accelerated reform or doomed the Republic. But the psychological chill settles deep if brothers can't bridge divides. What hope for a city fracturing from within? You ever reflect on the chilling audacity of a single river crossing that doomed a republic, where Julius Caesar's dice roll declaration, Alea iacta est, echoed across icy waters, a phrase historians still debate as genuine bravado, or later embellishment by Suetonius to glorify his gamble, turning a modest stream into the Rubicon of no return for an empire teetering on ambition's edge. The frigid current hits you first, splashing up your calves with a numbing bite that seeps through your leather sandals. The water's chill gripping like invisible chains as you wade deeper, the Rubicon's flow tugging insistently at your hem, soaking your woolen tunic into a heavy, clinging mass that mutates the familiar wet wool motif into an icy shroud pressing against your skin. Restrictive and unforgiving, while the air carries a sharp, wintry tang mixed with the faint iron scent of distant forges, the taste blooming on your tongue as if biting down on frozen metal, bitter and unyielding in the January dusk of 49 BCE. You embody Caesar now, astride your horse whose flanks steam in the cold, your loyal legions behind you murmuring oaths, their breath fogging like spectral warnings, the sensory struggle manifesting in the ache of frost-nipped fingers clutching reins, joints stiffening as the river's depth rises to your thighs, pulling with a deceptive calm that hides the political torrent ahead, where crossing this boundary defies Senate orders to disband your army, igniting civil war with a casual toss of fate's die. The physical event unfolds in that fateful plunge, your mount surging forward amid cheers that echo off barren banks, the water churning into froth around you, heart pounding with the thrill of rebellion. Yet empathy creeps in for the soldiers following blindly, their loyalties drowning in ambition's flood. Men who've bled for you in Gaul now risking everything for one man's glory, a sad element in how personal charisma warps collective fate. Factually threaded through Caesar's Gallic campaigns from 58 BCE had amassed wealth and fame, conquering tribes with ruthless efficiency. His commentaries self-penned propaganda that masked atrocities like the Avaricum massacre, where 40,000 perished. But the Senate, fearing his power, allied with Pompey to strip his command, forcing this Rubicon moment that shattered republican norms. Sarcasm whispers softly, "Oh, the great Caesar," playing general like a modern CEO launching a hostile takeover, ignoring boardroom vetoes to seize the company, but with swords instead of stocks, ambition drowning ethics faster than a leaked memo tank shares. You emerge dripping on the southern bank, the cold penetrating deeper as night falls, torchlight now flickering across the water like accusatory eyes, mutated from earlier revolutionary flames into beacons of impending doom that cast wavering reflections on the ripples, illuminating faces etched with determination and doubt. The iron taste intensifying as you bite your lip in resolve, drawing a bead of blood that mingles with river droplets. Academic uncertainty lingers here. Did Caesar truly utter, "The die is cast"? Or was it a dramatic flourish added by Plutarch? Scholars arguing the phrase's Greek origins suggest literary license over historical verbatim, complicating our view of his calculated risk versus impulsive hubris. The absurd tidbit surfaces in Caesar's use of carrier pigeons for battlefield intel, those feathered messengers fluttering overhead like ancient drones, a quirky innovation from his sieges that sped commands but couldn't forestall the chaos now unleashed. Modern comparison strikes it's akin to crossing a picket line in a labour dispute, knowing one step fractures alliances forever, loyalties splintering like ice under pressure, the psychological chill settling as you march toward Rome, the road ahead shadowed by omens of betrayal that prickle your skin like unseen daggers. Zoom out poetically, the Rubicon shrinking to a silver thread in the landscape's vast tapestry, hills rolling like slumbering giants under a star-pricked sky. The rivers murmur an eternal lament for lost republics. Civil war engulfs you next, battles blurring in a haze of clashing steel, your sword arm aching from parries at Pharsalus in 48 BCE, where Pompey's forces shatter, his flight to Egypt ending in assassination, a shocking twist revisited from his triumvirate days, the once ally's head presented to you on a platter, eyes glazed in accusation, the sadness welling as ambition's price manifests in former friends' corpses, empathy for Cleopatra emerging as she seduces you in Alexandria, her asp-like charm wrapping around your ambitions, the sensory delight of Egyptian silks contrasting Rome's rough wool, yet tainted by the iron tang of political intrigue. You return triumphant, appointing yourself dictator for life, reforms flooding like the Rubicon's waters calendar, tweaks adding February's leap, debt relief easing plebeian burdens, but the elite chafe at your kingly airs, crowns offered and refused in theatrical displays that fool no one, sarcasm dripping as you play humble while amassing power, like a politician denying scandals amid mounting evidence. The Ides of March dawns ominously in 44 BCE, you striding to the Senate House amid warnings from soothsayers and a wife's dreams, the air heavy with incense from temples, masking the undercurrent of conspiracy, your toga pristine but soon to soak in betrayal's warmth, the physical climax erupting as Brutus and Cassius lead the charge, daggers flashing in torchlit gloom wait, no sunlit hall, but the motif mutates into internal shadows, blades plunging 23 times, your body convulsing in shock, the pain radiating hot and wet, blood pooling sticky on mosaic floors, the shocking gasp of "Et tu, brute," escaping your lips, whether historical or Shakespeare's invention debated endlessly by scholars who question if Caesar said anything at all, perhaps just covering his face in dignified silence. Empathy overwhelms for this flawed genius. Reformer turned autocrat, his fall a sad symphony of misplaced trust, assassins' hands trembling as they strike, their liberty cries ringing hollow amid the gore. The absurd emerges in how they used a stylus Caesar's own writing tool as one weapon, symbolism stabbing deeper than steel, a fascinating quirk like signing your doom with your pen. You crumple, vision fading as chaos erupts, the forum erupting in riots, torchlight flaring into funeral pyres where Antony's oration twists grief into vengeance, flames consuming your wax effigy while the real body burns, smoke acrid and choking, the iron taste your last sensation, mutated into the ashy bitterness of legacy. Assassins flee, but civil war reignites, the psychological chill deepening as Rome's streets run with prescription blood, loyalties drowned once more in ambition's currents, leaving you wondering if daggers whisper betrayal so coldly, what warmer lies await in the empire's forged crown. You ever contemplate the eerie facade of peace built on a graveyard of freedoms, where Augustus claimed to restore the Republic but slyly crowned himself first citizen? A title masking autocracy so smoothly that historians still argue if his 41-year reign was genuine renewal, or the slickest power grab in antiquity. Transforming Rome from chaotic liberty into ordered chains with a smile, the cool marble greets your palms first, smooth and unyielding, as you trace the intricate carvings on the Arapacis. Augustus's altar of peace dedicated in 9 BCE, its surface veined with faint cracks like hidden veins pulsing under skin. The air in this newly rebuilt Rome carrying a polished scent of lime mortar and incense from nearby temples, but undercut by the faint, lingering tang of old blood soaked into the forum's stones, the iron taste blooming subtly on your tongue as if nibbling at the edge of forgotten violence, mutated now from assassination's sharp bite into the dull ache of suppressed dissent. You stroll through the transformed city, your sandals echoing softly on brick streets. Augustus boasts of elevating from mud to marble. Yet the weight of these facades presses down, a sensory struggle where the grandeur feels oppressive, like a too tight toga of wet wool drying into rigid constraints that chafe against your movements, restricting breath as you navigate avenues lined with triumphant arches commemorating Actium's naval slaughter in 31 BCE, where Octavian soon Augustus defeated Antony and Cleopatra, their alliance crumbling in a haze of betrayal that leaves you empathizing with the lover's final despair. Antony's sword turning inward, Cleopatra's asp delivering its venomous kiss in a sad tableau of exotic defeat. The physical event unfolds in the Senate House, you standing among the assembled as Augustus performs his masterful theatre in 27 BCE, restoring power to the people while accepting titles like princeps and imperator, his voice calm and measured, hands gesturing benevolently, but your gut twists with the irony of it all. This young survivor of Caesar's chaos revisited from the Rubicon's brink, but mutated into a calculating elder, accumulating vetoes and provincial commands that eclipse any consul. Sarcasm whispering that it's like a CEO stepping down, only to become chairman emeritus with all the strings still attached. Pulling Rome into his web without a crown's vulgar shine. Factually embedded, his reforms slashed the army to 28 legions, settling veterans in colonies where they farm under watchful eyes, his postal system speeding decrees across roads that stretch like veins from the capital. But the shocking underbelly reveals purges of senators, prescriptions echoing Sulla's lists, where names posted meant death, and confiscated wealth funding this peace. A creepy realism in how informants lurk in shadows, their whispers dooming rivals faster than any blade. You feel the sting of lost freedoms acutely, attending games in the Circus Maximus where crowds cheer distractions, bread and circuses numbing the masses to electoral manipulations, your seat hard and unyielding, the roar deafening yet hollow, empathy deepening for the silenced voices of Cicero's era. Their republican ideals buried under marble splendor, academic debate swirls around Augustus's intentions. Was he a reluctant ruler, preserving stability after civil wars that claimed hundreds of thousands? Or a Machiavellian genius whose res gestae autobiography whitewashes tyranny? Scholars passing his propaganda monuments for truths hidden in boasts. The absurd tidbit emerges in his peculiar health regimen, using leech prescriptions for bloodletting to cure chronic ills, those slimy creatures sucking at his skin in private chambers, a fascinating quirk of Roman medicine where vinegar baths followed to staunch the flow, predating modern wellness fads but with a vampiric twist that chills your spine imagining the wriggling attachments. Modern comparison resonates. It's akin to a social media influencer curating a perfect feed while shadow banning critics, peace masking the algorithm's iron grip on discourse. Freedoms eroded subtly until they're illusions. You ascend the Palatine Hill to his modest house, ironic facade amid opulent neighbors, torchlight flickering through windows like watchful eyes, mutated from revolutionary beacons into imperial surveillance that casts long shadows lengthening over the empire, the iron motif evolving into the clink of golden ori from his reformed mint, coins stamped with his image that jingle in your pouch, a constant reminder of personalized power. The sensory struggle heightens during frontier campaigns, you marching with legions to the Rhine where Germanic ambushes in Teutoburg Forest in 9 CE devour Varus's 3 legions, the forest's damp chill seeping into bones, wet leaves underfoot like sodden wool muffling screams, the pain of arrow wounds imagined vividly as survivors recount the horror. Augustus's cry of Varus, give me back my legions, echoing in your mind, a sad lament for overreach where peace's mask cracks, revealing the sting of barbaric resistance that pricks Roman pride. Zoom out poetically, the eternal city sprawling below like a luminous web under moonlight, marble facades gleaming ethereal yet fractured by invisible faults, the Tiber coiling serpentine through it all, whispering of currents that erode even the mightier stones. You attend his diplomatic triumphs, Parthian standards returned without war, A bloodless victory where envoys bow in the forum, but the injustice lingers in provincial taxes funding Rome's glow, locals groaning under collectors' heels, their resentment simmering like unseen fissures. Sarcasm drips as Augustus moralizes with sumptuary laws curbing luxury while his own family indulges. Livia's influence a shadowy force poisoning rivals, or so rumours claim, academic uncertainty clouding if she truly orchestrated deaths for Tiberius's succession. Her herbal remedies, a creepy staple in palace intrigues. The shocking element surfaces in his exile of daughter Julia for scandals, her banishment to barren islands where winds howl ceaselessly, empathy surging for this pawn in purity's game. Freedom stings sharper for the elite's own. You witness the succession grooming, no son surviving. Tiberius elevated reluctantly, the weight of marble cracking under dynastic strains, shadows lengthening as Augustus ages, his final days in 14 CE marked by bedside visions of Rome's future, the absurd practice of actors impersonating him in public to hide frailty, like a body double in modern politics dodging scrutiny. The torchlight dims in his mausoleum, mutated into eternal flames that flicker uncertainly, iron gates clanging shut on an era, leaving you with a mood shift if Peace's august mask conceals such deepening shadows. What tyrannical forms lurk in the lengthening dusk ahead? You ever wonder how an emperor could declare his horse a senator? A bizarre decree that historians debate as literal madness or exaggerated slander by elite chroniclers like Suetonius, who might have amplified Caligula's eccentricities to justify his assassination after just 4 years of rule, turning the throne into a gilded cage where whims lashed fiercer than any whip. The opulent chamber envelops you first, its walls draped in heavy silks that muffle sounds, but trap the cloying heat from braziers, the fabric brushing your skin like a lover's deceitful caress, slightly damp from the humid Roman night that seeps through cracks, mutating the wet wool motif into sweat-soaked luxury linens clinging to your body with a sticky insistence that makes every shift uncomfortable. The air thick with the scent of exotic incense battling the underlying rot of excess, while your tongue detects the iron taste again, sharper now, as if from biting down on gold coins flavoured with the metallic bite of unchecked power. You pace the Palatine Palace under Tiberius's shadow, revisited from Augustus's succession, but with a dark twist. His retreat to Capri in 26 CE left Rome in the grip of Sejanus, the Praetorian prefect whose ambitions coiled like serpents, plotting coups amid treason trials that executed senators on flimsy charges, their final gasps echoing in your ears as empathy surges for the innocents caught in paranoia's web, families shattered like fragile amphorae, a sad element where even the emperor's kin trembled in fear. The physical event erupts in Sejanus's downfall, you witnessing the Senate's denouncement as letters from Tiberius arrive, his words read aloud in a tense assembly where guards turn on their leader, dragging him away in chains that clank with resonant iron peals, your heart racing as executions follow, the sensory struggle manifesting in the chill of marble floors underfoot despite the room's warmth, sweat trickling cold down your spine as bodies pile in the forum, the shocking purge claiming his children too, innocence slaughtered to erase his line, sarcasm whispering that it's like a corporate purge where the boss fires the ambitious VP only after he's poisoned the well, leaving the company in ruins worse than a bad merger. Factually interwoven, Tiberius's 23-year reign began promisingly with military restraint and fiscal prudence, but devolved into isolation. His Capri villa a den of alleged debauchery where he swam in pools with little fishes, young boys trained for lewd acts, an absurd tidbit that fascinates yet horrifies. Scholars debating if these tales were senatorial propaganda to blacken his name posthumously, or kernels of truth from a ruler unhinged by grief over Germanicus's suspicious death. You feel the lash of his whims indirectly, attending trials where accusations fly like arrows, the pain of false witness stinging like thorns in your conscience, modern comparison hitting as it's akin to social media cancellations where rumours spread virally, reputations shredded without trial, the elites fear a psychological chill that freezes loyalties. Caligula ascends in 37 CE, his early months a deceptive honeymoon where he abolishes treason laws and showers crowds with coins. You catching one mid-air, its cool metal pressing into your palm before the iron taste sours as his illness. Perhaps Encephalitis or poisoning mutates benevolence into tyranny. The torchlight flickering in his fevered eyes like unstable flames that cast grotesque shadows on frescoed walls, mutated from imperial beacons into harbingers of madness. The sensory struggle deepens at his spectacles. You seated in the arena where he orders gladiators to fight without armor, blood spraying warm and sticky onto nearby spectators. The shocking waste of life for amusement. Empathy overwhelming for the slaves thrown to beasts, their cries muffled by roaring crowds, a sad spectacle where even senators tremble at his invitations, fearing poison in the wine or sudden executions masked as jests. Sarcasm drips as Caligula names his horse Incitatus a consul, complete with marble stables and purple togas, an absurd historical tidbit where he allegedly planned to elevate the beast to priesthood. Scholars arguing if this was satirical commentary on senatorial incompetence or genuine delusion from lead-poisoned pipes leaching into his water. A debate that questions Roman plumbing's role in elite insanity. You navigate his gilded cages, palaces expanded with floating bridges across the Bay of Baiae, ships rocking gently but your stomach churning from the excess, wet silks clinging in sea spray that evokes earlier motifs, the iron chains of rowers below clinking rhythmically, their backs lashed raw in a creepy realism of imperial caprice. Modern aside, it's like a celebrity meltdown on live TV, where fame's cage turns quirks into cruelties, fans cheering until the fallout hits. The climax builds to his assassination in 41 CE, you hiding in corridors as conspirators strike during games, daggers flashing in dim light, his body crumpling amid pleas. The shocking irony that this little boot Caligula's nickname from childhood army camps kicked Rome into deeper chaos, leaving Praetorians to elevate Claudius. The stammering uncle dismissed as a fool, his disabilities a shield that twisted into unexpected strength. You empathize with Claudius's hidden intellect, rising in 41 CE to conquer Britain in 43 CE. Legions splashing through channel waves, your boots sinking in muddy shores where Celtic war cries pierce the fog. The sensory pain of arrow volleys whistling past, iron tips grazing skin, while he extends citizenship to Gauls, integrating provinces in a factual push against Italian supremacy, yet poisoned perhaps by Agrippina in 54 CE, mushrooms delivering death's chill, academic uncertainty clouding if it was murder or natural, her scheming for Nero a dark maternal twist. Nero's reign dawns golden under Seneca's tutelage, you attending his artistic recitals where lyre strings hum sweetly, but the facade cracks with matricide in 59 CE. Agrippina stabbed in a villa, her final words strike the womb, a shocking curse that haunts. Sadness enveloping as fires ravage Rome in 64 CE, the blazes' heat scorching your face from afar, wet ash falling like polluted snow. The iron taste mixing with smoke as Christians burn as scapegoats, their torches mutating the motif into human pyres illuminating his golden house. Sarcasm notes his artistic lament at suicide in 68 CE. What an artist dies in me, like a diva bowing out amid boos. The absurd fiddling myth debunked, but his real chariot races in the circus thrilling yet tyrannical. Modern parallel to rock stars trashing hotels while fans idolize the destruction. You flee the night's uneasy dreams, palaces echoing with ghostly whips, the gilded cages rattling empty, shadows scorching memories, leaving a chill if madness crowned such emperors. What fiery nightmares await the throne's next captives? You ever speculate on the fragile sheen of a golden age where emperors chosen for merit rather than blood built barriers against the howling unknown? Yet historians still wrangle over whether Trajan's conquests marked Rome's peak, or the overstretch that invited barbarian winds to gnaw through the empire's armoured facade like frostbite claiming unwary fingers. The biting gale assaults you first, whipping across the Rhine's misty banks with a raw edge that slices through your legionary cloak, the wool heavy and sodden from river spray that clings like an insistent chill, mutating the familiar wet wool motif into a frozen barrier that stiffens against your skin. Restrictive and numbing as it wards off the Germanic fog rolling in dense waves, the air sharp with the scent of pine resin and damp earth, your tongue detecting the iron taste anew, harsh and unyielding as if licking the edge of a gladius blade rusted from endless frontier patrols. You stand sentinel on Hadrian's Wall in northern Britannia, the stone barrier snaking across rugged moors like a scarred spine, your boots sinking into peaty mud that squelches with each shift, the sensory struggle manifesting in the ache of wind-burned cheeks and fingers gripping a spear shaft that grows slick with condensation, joints protesting the ceaseless vigil against painted Caledonians whose war cries echo faintly from misty highlands, a shocking reminder that Rome's golden age under the adoptive emperors from 96 to 180 CE rested on such precarious edges, where peace at home meant perpetual war abroad, empathy welling for the auxiliaries' non-citizen troops from conquered lands shivering beside you, their loyalties forged in iron chains of service rather than Roman birthright. The physical event unfolds in a sudden raid. You scrambling up the wall's rampart as alarms clang from watchtowers, arrows hissing through the gale to thud into shields, your arm jarring from the impact as you thrust back with pilum, the pain radiating up your shoulder like the Empire's overextended reach. Barbarians swarming in fur-clad fury, their axes biting into wood with resonant cracks, the fight a blur of grunts and clashes until reinforcements drive them back, leaving the ground littered with fallen blood steaming in the cold air, a sad tableau where comrades from distant provinces lie unclaimed, their dreams of citizenship extinguished in foreign soil. Factually blended in Nerva's brief reign in 96 CE, initiated adoptive succession to avert Julio-Claudian chaos, choosing Trajan a Spaniard, the first non-Italian emperor who expanded to Dacia in 101-106 CE, incorporating gold mines that swelled treasuries but strained legions, his column in Rome spiraling with carved victories that masked the human cost. Sarcasm murmurs softly, the optimal princeps, Trajan, building forums vaster than ego-driven malls today, yet his welfare programs for poor children feel like corporate philanthropy, generous on surface, but funded by plundered Dacian wealth, much like tech billionaires donating fractions of exploited fortunes. You feel the tarnished edges keenly, marching through Armenian deserts in Trajan's eastern campaigns of 114-117 CE. Sands grinding underfoot like abrasive regrets, the heat mutating wet wool into sweat-soaked torment that chafes thighs raw, the iron taste mixing with dust that coats your mouth, a sensory ordeal where mirages taunt with oases never reached, empathy deepening for Parthian captives paraded in triumphs, their chains clinking like accusations against overambition that briefly touched the Persian Gulf before retreat. Academic uncertainty clouds Trajan's deathbed adoption of Hadrian in 117 CE. Did he truly choose his cousin? Or did Plotinus forge the decree, a debate fueled by ancient gossips like Dio Cassius who hinted at intrigue, complicating views of this merit-based system as pure or politically manipulated? The absurd tidbit gleams in Hadrian's beard, a Hellenic fashion-bucking clean-shaven Roman norms, grown perhaps to hide facial flaws or signal cultural shifts, a fascinating quirk like modern leaders adopting trends to rebrand, his travels consuming half his 21-year rule, you accompanying him on foot through provinces, winds biting through armor as he inspects frontiers, the wall in Britain rising under his orders in 122 CE, mile castles punctuating its 73-mile length, stones hauled by your aching back, the pain of blistered hands a microcosm of empire's labor. Modern parallel emerges, it's akin to a CEO touring global offices, building walls of policy to contain unrest. But Hadrian's withdrawal from Trajan's eastern gains feels like corporate downsizing, pragmatic yet deflating for those invested in expansion. The shocking abandonment leaving Mesopotamian allies to Parthian reprisals, winds carrying their distant wails like omens, you revisit Augustus's peace altar in a twist, its marble now echoing Hadrian's pantheon rebuild in 126 CE. The dome's oculus admitting rains that pool on floors, wet stones slick underfoot, torchlight flickering through the aperture like divine scrutiny mutated into architectural wonder, flames dancing on coffered ceilings that hide engineering marvels of concrete, the iron reinforcements hidden but tasted in the air's metallic hint during storms. Zoom out poetically, the empire's vastness unfolding like a tattered map under stormy skies, frontiers curling defensive where once they thrust outward, the Rhine and Danube snaking as lifelines against the barbarian tide, symbols of a golden age polishing its own tarnish. The sensory struggle peaks under Antoninus Pius's serene 23-year rule from 138 CE. You stationed in peaceful provinces where boredom gnaws like hunger, winds gentle yet carrying whispers of distant threats, your armor chafing idle skin, the irony in his pious name masking uneventful competence that built aqueducts and roads, factual stability allowing cultural flourishing but hiding inequalities where slaves toil unseen, a sad undercurrent to his welfare extensions. Sarcasm notes his adoption of Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus, continuing the chain, like HR picking successors from a talent pool unsullied by nepotism until biology intervenes. Marcus's stoic meditations accompany you on Danube patrols from 161 CE, plagues ravaging in 165 CE the Antonine scourge, perhaps smallpox from eastern troops your cough hacking dry and painful, fever sweating through wool, the shocking death toll of millions tarnishing the age's gold, academic debates questioning if it weakened Rome irreparably or forged resilience, his philosophical calm a balm amid Germanic incursions, Marcomanni breaching walls in winds that bite through armor, freezing exposed flesh. You fight in his campaigns, spear thrusting into fog-shrouded foes, the pain of wounds bandaged hastily, iron tasting of blood and resolve, empathy for this emperor-philosopher burdened by duty, his son's Commodus looming as a flawed heir, breaking adoptive purity. The torchlight mutates into campfires guttering against northern gales, flames huddled low, casting faces in weary glows, the Golden Age's edges fraying visibly, winds whispering of cracks widening, leaving a psychological chill if merit's chain holds such hidden weaknesses. What storms will shatter the barrier when biology reclaims the throne? You ever marvel at the dizzying speed of emperors tumbling like autumn leaves in a gale? A crisis where over 26 claimants seized the throne in just 50 years, from 235 to 285 CE. Historians debating if this anarchy stemmed from economic collapse or the military's insatiable hunger for power, turning the purple into a blood-stained lottery ticket that promised glory but delivered mostly graves. The whirlwind catches you abruptly, dust devils swirling across the Palatine's cracked mosaics with a gritty assault that stings your eyes and coats your throat in a choking haze, the air heavy with the acrid bite of unquenched forge fires from distant barracks, your tongue assaulted by the iron taste once more, mutated from earlier metallic sharpness into a rusty corrosion that spreads like decay from gnawing on stale rations amid hyperinflation's grip. The sensory struggle manifesting in your empty stomach's relentless growl, a hollow ache that twists inward as prices soar for bread once affordable. Now worth a soldier's monthly pay, your woolen tunic hanging loose and threadbare, no longer wet but frayed and itching against malnourished skin like a constant reminder of ruined slow gnaw. You hustle through Rome's shadowed alleys under Commodus's crumbling legacy, revisited from Marcus Aurelius's philosophical calm, but with a vicious twist his son's gladiatorial delusions drained treasuries, staging fights where he charged exorbitant fees for victories against rigged opponents. His assassination in 192 CE by a wrestler in his bath a shocking end to the Antonine line. Steam, rising from the tub mingled with blood that pools slick and warm, empathy surging for the attendants who witnessed this parody of heroism devolve into strangled gasps. A sad farce where the self-styled Hercules met mortality, not in arena sands, but in sudsy ignominy. The physical event spirals in the year of 5 emperors, you caught in the auction's frenzy where praetorians sell the throne to Didius Julianus for a donative richer than soldiers' dreams. His 66-day reign a blur of bribes and betrayals, your hands trembling as you clutch a meagre coin purse amid riots. The pain of hunger pangs sharpening as grain shortages bite deeper than any blade. Winds carrying whispers of provincial revolts that buffet your ears like accusations against the elite's indifference. Factually layered in Pertinax's brief rule, attempted reforms but ended in Praetorian murder over unpaid bonuses, igniting chaos where Septimius Severus emerged victorious from civil wars, his African origins marking the first non-European emperor, yet his enrich the soldiers deathbed advice in 211 CE fueled militarization that hollowed the state, a shocking policy where army pay hikes debased currency, silver denarii reduced to bronze cores plated thinly, inflation spiraling as merchants hoard goods, your transactions fraught with suspicion over counterfeit weights that cheat the desperate. Sarcasm slips in slyly. Oh, the mighty legions. once defenders now kingmakers, demanding handouts like entitled influencers chasing sponsorships. But when the treasury empties, it's the common folk who starve, much like today's economic bubbles bursting on the backs of the working class while executives parachute golden. You flee to the frontiers amid barbarian incursions, Goths raiding Thrace in whirlwinds of dust and arrows that whistle past your ducked head, the sensory ordeal in evading sacks where villages burn, smoke-stinging eyes already raw from wind, your feet blistered on endless marches to reinforce crumbling walls, the absurd tidbit gleaming in how Emperor Decius in 251 CE died at Abritus, the first to fall in battle against foreigners, his body lost in marshes where leeches, those bloodsuckers from earlier medical quirks, now feast on imperial remains. A fascinating irony of nature reclaiming the conqueror. Academic uncertainty clouds the era's death toll. Did the crisis kill a third of the population through plague, famine, and war? Or were figures inflated by Christian chroniclers like Eusebius to dramatize pagan decline? Debates hinging on sparse coin hoards and skeletal evidence from mass graves that whisper of widespread malnutrition. Modern comparison resonates. It's akin to stock market crashes cascading into recessions, where CEOs tumble like dominoes while workers scrape by on evaporated savings, the elite's golden parachutes contrasting the masses' freefall. You huddle in Aurelian's restored Rome, his walls rising in 271 CE amid frantic construction, hammers clanging iron against stone that reverberates in your skull, the pain of labour gangs' calloused hands mirroring your own imagined toil, torchlight flickering on new battlements mutated from earlier beacons into defensive flares that cast elongated shadows of invaders. The shocking reconquest of Palmyra, where Queen Zenobia parades in golden chains during his triumph, her defiance a sad spark extinguished in exile, empathy flooding for this eastern ruler who briefly carved an empire from Rome's fragments, winds carrying her desert sands whisper across the Mediterranean. The physical twists continue under Diocletian from 284 CE, you enlisting in his tetrarchy that divides rule among four, the gale calming but bureaucracy bloating, your assignments shuffling between capitals like Nicomedia, where eastern spices clash with Roman grit, the sensory clash overwhelming in markets where debased coins buy little, hunger's gnaw persisting despite reforms that fix prices, but spawn black markets thriving in shadows. Sarcasm notes the edict's failure, ceilings on everything from wheat to wool collapsing under enforcement's weight, like governments capping rents only for landlords to evade with hidden fees. The irony in how stability's cage locks in stagnation. You ponder the Christian persecutions under this system, flames consuming scriptures in public squares, the shocking resilience of believers hiding in catacombs, where damp walls press cold and clammy, wet echoes dripping like accusations against pagan fears, academic debates questioning if Diocletian's retirement in 305 CE to grow cabbages was voluntary or forced by illness, his split palace, a vegetable haven amid whirlwind's aftermath. Zoom out poetically, the empire fracturing like autumn foliage under relentless gusts, frontiers curling brittle as leaves in frost, the Rhine and Danube murmuring of breaches where barbarians pour like seasonal floods, symbols of a crisis whirlwind that scatters emperors' legacies to the winds. The iron chains of reformed legions clank in parades, but the taste sours with debasement's rust, shadows gnawing at golden pretenses, leaving a psychological chill if assassins' blades whirl so ceaselessly. What ruinous tempests brew when the leaves finally settle bare. You ever ponder the surreal blaze of a cross searing the midday sky, a vision that converted an emperor overnight and reshaped an empire's soul, with historians still squabbling over whether Constantine's sign at the Milvian Bridge in 312 CE was divine miracle, clever propaganda, or a solar halo twisted into Christian symbolism to rally troops against Maxentius. The blinding light pierces you first, a fiery cross materializing amid swirling clouds over the Tiber's banks, its glow warming your upturned face like an unnatural hearth that chases away the autumn chill, the air humming with the distant clamour of assembling armies, your eyes watering from the glare while the scent of oiled leather and sweat-soaked harnesses mingles with the river's muddy tang, the iron taste blooming on your tongue as if biting down on a heated coin stamped with imperial eagles, mutated now from earlier rusty corrosion into a sanctified metallic glow that lingers like faith's unyielding grip. You charge alongside Constantine's forces, your boots pounding the bridge's wooden planks that creak under the weight of armoured men, the sensory struggle erupting in the clash of shields against Maxentius's lines, your arms jarring from impacts that send vibrations up to your teeth, the wet wool of your undertunic clinging damp from river spray that splashes amid the melee. Restrictive and chilling as bodies tumble into the current below, their splashes muffled by war cries, a shocking frenzy where thousands drown in the Tiber's embrace, empathy surging for the defeated who gasped their last in watery graves, their loyalties to a rival emperor dissolving like salt in the flow, a sad dissolution where political faith meets literal submersion. The physical event culminates in victory's roar, you standing bloodied on the far bank as Constantine claims Rome, his Chiro emblem, the overlaid Greek letters for Christ painted hastily on shields, a twist on earlier pagan standards that mutates Mars's spear into a Christian lance, sarcasm whispering that it's like rebranding a failing company with a viral logo, swapping Jupiter's thunderbolts for a cross to unite fractured legions under one banner, much like modern politicians co-opting religious symbols for electoral wins without the piety. Factually embedded the Edict of Milan in 313 CE, co-issued with Licinius, ended Christian persecutions and restored properties, legalizing the faith that had grown underground since Nero's scapegoating. But Constantine's favoritism donating lands for basilicas like St. Peter's tilted the scales. His council at Nicaea in 325 CE, hammering out the creed against Arian heretics who denied Christ's divinity. A doctrinal hammer that forged orthodoxy amid heated debates. You attend the council's tense sessions, the air thick with incense and scholarly sweat in Nicaea's halls, your seat hard against your back as bishops argue eternally. The pain of prolonged sittings gnawing at your spine like schism slow tear. The absurd tidbit surfacing in how Arius was slapped by St. Nicholas, yes, the future Santa Claus for his views, a fascinating slapstick moment in theology's grave theatre. Scholars debating if this assault was literal or allegorical exaggeration in later hagiographies that sainted the bishop despite his temper. Modern comparison hits it's akin to boardroom battles over company doctrine, where CEOs mediate factions like product teams clashing over vision, excommunicating dissenters with pink slips instead of anathemas, the psychological chill deepening as you witness pagan temples repurposed, their marble stripped for churches, dust crumbling from altars where once incense pleased Jupiter, now echoing with chants that drown ancestral gods in new hymns. The torchlight motif mutates into baptismal candles flickering in dim cathedrals, flames dancing pure and steady against the night's encroaching shadows, casting elongated forms on walls etched with Chiro graffiti, the iron chains of former persecutions rusting away but replaced by doctrinal fetters that bind believers to creeds, your hands trembling as you dip fingers in holy water that feels unnaturally warm, as if infused with the sky's fiery sign. You travel with Constantine to his new capital in 330 CE, Byzantium reborn as Constantinople, the Bosphorus winds whipping your face raw with salty gusts that carry eastern spices and the promise of renewal. Yet the sensory ordeal lies in abandoning Rome's ancient hills, their pagan associations shed like old skin, the pain of relocation aching in displaced citizens' bones as they haul belongings across seas. A shocking pivot where the eternal city yields to this Christian stronghold straddling continents, empathy flooding for traditionalists watching temples shutter, their rituals fading like echoes in empty forums, a sad erosion where household layers those tiny god figurines gather dust in attics forgotten amid crosses rises. Sarcasm notes the irony of Constantine's delayed baptism until his deathbed in 337 CE, hedging bets on salvation after a life of conquest that spilled rivers of blood. Like a CEO delaying retirement perks until the last quarter, ensuring maximal gains before the final audit. Academic uncertainty veils his true conversion. Was it heartfelt after Milvian, or pragmatic politics to unify a fracturing realm? Debates fueled by Eusebius's hagiographic Life of Constantine versus Zosimus's pagan critiques that painted him as opportunist. Evidence tilting toward gradual shift but clouded by biased sources. You navigate the Arian controversies under his sons, Constantius II enforcing the heresy at councils where bishops brawl like gladiators, the air in Arles or Serdica thick with rhetorical barbs sharper than daggers, your ears ringing from shouts that tear faith's fragile threads. The shocking exile of Athanasius multiple times for defending Nicene orthodoxy, his wanderings a nomadic testament to doctrinal wars that outlast swords, sadness enveloping as families divide over Christ's nature fully divine or created schisms rending communities like fabric torn in grief. The torchlight dances in hidden Arian chapels, flames huddled secretive against orthodox purges, iron censers swinging with hymns that clash in dissonance, the wet wool drying into stiff vestments worn by exiled clergy trudging rainy roads, their burdens heavier than mere cloth. Zoom out poetically, the empire bifurcating like a forked lightning bolt under stormy heavens. Eastern and Western seas diverging in theological storms that rumble eternal. The Mediterranean, a vast, indifferent mirror reflecting fractured skies, where crosses blaze but cast long, divisive shadows. You ponder Julian's apostate revival in 361 CE, his brief 18-month pagan renaissance ordering temple restorations amid Christian backlash, winds carrying the scent of revived sacrifices that mingle uneasily with incense, the pain of reversed fortune stinging converts who hide crosses, a shocking counter-reformation where philosophy battles faith, but his death on Persian spears in 363 CE halts the tide. Empathy for this last Hellenic emperor whose blood soaks eastern sands, a sad what-if where Rome might have clung to Olympus instead of Calvary. Sarcasm chuckles at Theodosius' edict in 380 CE, making Nicene Christianity official, banning pagan rites in 391 CE, like a regime change scrubbing old logos for new branding, temples closing faster than outdated stores in a mall makeover. The absurd emerges in how pagans hid statues in wells to preserve them, those submerged idols waiting centuries for rediscovery, a fascinating time capsule of lost devotion. Modern aside, it's like cultural shifts in social media, where old trends get demonetized overnight, users scrambling to adapt or face digital exile, the psychological chill deepening as pagan altars crumble to dust, threads of ancient faith fraying irreparably, winds howl through empty shrines, carrying echoes of schisms that tear deeper, shadows of fiery crosses lengthening over a transformed world, leaving a mood shift if divine signs forge unity from division. What fragile threads hold when the sky's blaze fades to embers. The thunderous tramp of Gothic boots reverberates first, pounding the Appian Way's ancient stones with a relentless rhythm that jars your bones through the thin soles of your sandals, the ground vibrating like a living entity protesting the invasion, dust kicking up in choking clouds that coat your throat and sting your eyes with gritty tears, the air thick with the acrid sweat of unwashed warriors and the metallic tang of oiled weapons, your tongue assaulted by the iron taste once more, mutated from sanctified glow into the rusty bite of rusted chains dragging captives behind Alaric's horde, a flavour that sours further with the fierce sweat beading on your brow as you flee southward from Rome's gates in 410 CE, the sensory struggle manifesting in the blistering heat of August sun baking your skin raw beneath a tunic torn and soiled from days of hiding in cellars where damp mildew clings like wet wool to your clothes, restrictive and suffocating, every breath laboured amid the chaos of refugees streaming like ants from a disturbed nest. You dodge carts overturned in panic, their wheels splintering under the weight of looted treasures that spill onto the road, silver chalices glinting mockingly, scrolls unrolling in the dirt to reveal forgotten wisdom trampled underfoot, the injustice clawing at your chest like thorns as patrician families who once lounged in villas now scramble alongside slaves. Hierarchies dissolved in the gale of barbarian advance, empathy overwhelming for the children clutched in arms, their wide eyes reflecting the horror of homes aflame, a sad dissolution where Rome's eternal facade crumbles faster than parchment in fire. The physical event erupts as Alaric's Visigoths breach the Salarian gate, after a traitor, perhaps a starving slave or disgruntled senator, unbars it under cover of night. You cowering in a tenement's shadow as the horde pours in, axes gleaming in torchlight that dances wildly like accusatory spirits, mutated from baptismal candles into pagan bonfires that illuminate faces painted with woad and fury. The shocking sack unfolding in 3 days of restrained pillage Alaric, Christian himself in Arian heresy, orders churches spared but villas ransacked. your heart pounding as you witness nuns huddled in St. Peter's, their chants a fragile barrier against looters who drag gold crucifixes away regardless. The pain radiating from a glancing blow as you shove past a warrior grabbing at your meager pouch, his grip bruising your arm like the Empire's self-inflicted wounds, factually threaded through Alaric. Once a Roman Federate general denied promised lands after Adrianople's Gothic victory in 378 CE, had besieged Rome twice before, extorting ransoms that bankrupted the treasury. But this third time in 410 CE marked the first sack since the Gauls in 390 BCE, a breach that shattered Roman invincibility. Jerome lamenting from Bethlehem that the city which had taken the whole world was itself taken. His words echoing in your mind as you stumble through streets where flames lick at pagan temples left unprotected, the injustice stinging sharper as imperial ghosts revisited from Constantine's fiery cross, but with a vengeful twist seemed to haunt the ravaged forums. Augustus's marble cracking under boot heels that echo the Rubicon's fateful splash, mutated into this barbarian deluge. Sarcasm whispers amid the screams, oh, the mighty Rome, mistress of the world, now prostrate before former allies turned foes because senators quibbled over payments like corporate suits, delaying vendor checks until bankruptcy hits, much like modern governments fumbling aid to allies only to face backlash in uprisings that topple regimes. You weave through the Palatine's looted halls, gold leaf peeling from ceilings like flaking skin, the sensory ordeal in the stench of overturned latrines mixing with spilled wine that slicks the floors, your feet slipping in the mess as you evade groups carting away statues of gods now headless, his skin prickling with the goose flesh of near misses while the absurd tidbit emerges in how Goths mistook pepper for a precious spice worth its weight in gold, stuffing sacks with black grains that would later flavour their feasts, a fascinating quirk of cultural misunderstanding where Eastern luxuries baffled these northern nomads, scholars debating if Alaric's mercy no wholesale massacre, unlike later Vandals, stemmed from genuine Aryan piety or pragmatic fear of divine retribution, evidence from Prudentius's poems suggesting a calculated restraint to negotiate better terms with Honorius in Ravenna. The shocking element hits as you glimpse Empress Galla Placidia captured briefly before ransom, her imperial silks torn amid the throng, a sad princess reduced to bargaining chip in this whirlwind of reversal, empathy deepening as you witness the urban poor who riot in vain against empty markets, their resentment simmering like unseen fissures, while the wet wool dries into stiff crusts under the relentless sun that bakes refugees into weary columns, snaking toward uncertain havens. Modern comparison resonates. It's like a boardroom coup, ousting the competent hybrid executive, only for competitors to swarm the market share, leaving shareholders here, citizens scrambling in the fallout, the psychological chill settling as imperial ghosts whisper of Honorius's indifference, legend claiming he mourned his chicken Roma more than the city's fall, a possibly apocryphal tale, but one that captures the detachment of Ravenna's court, cocooned in marshes while the west unravels, the torchlight dances in sacked basilicas where altars stand bare, flames from looters' camps casting grotesque shadows on walls, etched with hurried graffiti prayers for deliverance mingling with Gothic runes, the iron chains of enslaved Romans clanking in the distance as they're herded north, mutated symbols echoing earlier prescriptions but now in barbarian hands that drag them to uncertain fates. You huddle in a ruined suburb as the sack winds down, Alaric withdrawing after 3 days with wagons groaning under spoils, the sensory relief in the ebbing chaos clashing with the gnaw of hunger from depleted granaries, your stomach twisting empty as North African supplies falter under Vandal threats. The shocking ripple where Rome's breadbasket sours, a sad famine that foreshadows deeper hungers, while winds carry the scent of distant fire still smouldering in the hills. Academic uncertainty veils the sack's damage. Was it as devastating as Prudentius claimed? With virgins violated and treasures melted, or more measured as Orosius suggested to downplay pagan gods' abandonment? Debates hinging on archaeological ash layers that confirm fires but not total annihilation. The city's resilience a testament to Stoneover's spirit. You venture back into the haunted streets, ghosts of looted screams fading but imperial spectres, lingering in toppled statues of Honorius, their marble eyes staring blankly at the rubble, winds howling through breached walls that once encircled glory. the injustice aching like open sores on society's body as Federate Goths' supposed allies turn predators for unpaid wages, sarcasm noting how Rome's civilizing mission boomeranged, inviting the barbarians in as guests who overstayed to feast on the host, much like inviting venture capital only for them to gut the company. The physical twists continue in Attila's approach in 452 CE. You evacuating Aquileia as Hunnic horsemen thunder closer, their bows twanging death from afar. The pain of arrow grazes imagined vividly as Pope Leoatha negotiates at the Mincio River, his delegation's torches flickering against Attila's campfire glow. The shocking retreat attributed to divine intervention, or practical plagues ravaging his army a miracle where words halt hordes. But empathy for ravaged northern Italy where fields lie fallow, peasants starving amid trampled crops, a sad desolation that mutates prosperity into wasteland. The absurd tidbit shines in Attila's nosebleed death on his wedding night in 453 CE, blood drowning him in sleep after feasting. A fascinating anticlimax for the scourge of God who terrorized two empires, scholars debating if it was natural or poisoned intrigue, his empire fragmenting faster than Rome's walls under siege. You recall Stilicho's desperate alliances, revisited from earlier frontier walls, but with tragic irony he married Honorius' sister, yet fell to court intrigue, his death unleashing the very invasions he contained. The pain of betrayal aching like an old wound as you flee westward, muscles burning from endless flight, his skin prickling with the gooseflesh of near misses, while the winds shift with Odoacer's rise in 476 CE. You in the barracks as Herulian mercenaries mutiny for land grants denied. The pain of unpaid wages burning like injustice's fire. His sword drawn in reluctant revolt against Romulus Augustulus, the boy emperor deposed without blood. His regalia shipped east to Zeno, a shocking anticlimax where the West ends not in apocalypse but bureaucratic shrug. Empathy for the child retired to a villa, his rule, a farce in Ravenna's echoes, a sad epilogue to Augustus's foundation. Academic uncertainty veils the fall. Was 476 truly the end? Or a transformation, as Peter Brown argues, with continuity in law and culture amid political fragmentation, debates hinging on sparse coin hoards and skeletal evidence from mass graves that whisper of widespread malnutrition. Modern parallel, it's like a conglomerate dissolving subsidiaries, assets redistributed while the brand lingers ghostly. The psychological chill in realizing Rome's eternal claim was illusion, shadows of walls crumbling eternal under boots that march onward. You trudge through Vandal-sacked Rome in 455 CE, worse than Alaric's with churches looted, Empress Eudoxia carried off as prize, the laughter at fortune's vanity a sad echo of Boethius, empathy for Berber allies betrayed in the shuffle, injustice in how reconquest drains resources for fleeting gains, while the sensory horror in stripped altars where gold leaf peels like flaking skin, wet ashes from doused fires clinging to your feet, his skin crawling with the chill of normalized violence. The winds howl through ravaged gates, carrying ghosts' wails that blend with looted echoes, shadows haunting streets where imperial splendor fades to rubble, a strange visual image of overgrown forums where deer graze amid columns like silent sentinels. The psychological chill deepening as you question if sacks birth such haunted legacies. What rebirths await in the silence? You ever imagine the audacious rebirth of an empire from the smouldering ruins of Persian conquests, where Heraclius clawed back lost provinces in campaigns so grueling that historians still debate if his victories were divine favor or sheer logistical genius, turning the eastern phoenix's flames into a beacon that outshone the west's fading glow, only for plague's insidious breath to steal away the triumph in a haze of death. The scorching desert wind lashes you first, whipping fine sand against your exposed skin like 1,000 tiny needles pricking relentlessly, the grains embedding in your sweat-dampened tunic that clings heavy and abrasive, mutated from earlier wet wool into a gritty second skin that chafes with every laboured step across the Mesopotamian plains. The air thick with the acrid tang of smoke from distant sacked cities and the underlying rot of unburied dead. Your tongue coated in the iron taste once more, sharpened now into a coppery foulness as if licking the edge of a blood-rusted Byzantine blade fresh from Persian clashes. the sensory struggle deepening as blisters swell on your feet, from marching in ill-fitting sandals over sun-baked earth that cracks like parched lips. Each footfall sending jolts of pain up your legs while the relentless heat saps your strength, leaving you gasping for breath in air that feels too thick to inhale. You advance with Heraclius's exhausted troops in 622 CE, embodying a common soldier in this desperate counter-offensive against the Sassanid Persians who had ravaged Syria, Palestine, and Egypt, capturing the true cross from Jerusalem in 614 CE as a trophy paraded to Ctesiphon. The injustice burning hotter than the sun as you recall the Sax horrors churches desecrated, civilians herded like cattle, a sad echo of Rome's own fall but twisted here into Eastern desperation, where Zoroastrian fires mocked Christian altars, empathy surging for the refugees you pass, their hollow eyes reflecting lost homes and families splintered by invasion, their rags fluttering in the wind like tattered banners of defeat. The physical event unfolds in the daring raid deep into Persian territory, you scaling rugged Zagros passes where rocks tumble treacherously underfoot. Your hands roar from gripping ropes that fray against jagged edges, the pain radiating as arrows whistle from ambush points, one grazing your shoulder with a hot sting that draws blood mingling with sweat. The shocking turnaround at the Battle of Nineveh in 627 CE, where Heraclius personally duels Khosrow II's general, swords clashing with resonant iron peals that echo through valleys, your shield arm numbing from repeated blows as Byzantine cataphracts charge, heavy armor clanking like thunder, routing the Persians and forcing a peace that restores borders and the cross, carried triumphantly back to Jerusalem in 630 CE, amid chants that lift your spirits but can't erase the toll of years in the field, where dysentery and exhaustion claimed more lives than blades. Factually woven in Heraclius's reign from 610 CE, began with overthrowing the tyrant Phocas, his reforms reorganizing Thebes' military districts where soldiers farmed their own lands to bolster defenses, a pragmatic shift that saved the East from total collapse after Evars and Persians besieged Constantinople in 626 CE, the walls holding firm thanks to the Virgin's icon paraded in processions. A shocking siege where Greek fires Naphtha flames scorched enemy fleets, the absurd tidbit emerging in how defenders used urine to extinguish the incendiary weapon when water failed, a fascinating desperation tactic debated by scholars as alchemical ingenuity or lucky improvisation. Evidence from Theophanes' chronicle suggesting it turned the tide, allowing Heraclius's offensive to succeed. Sarcasm creeps in softly. The Phoenix Emperor rising from ashes by taxing churches and melting relics for coinage, like a startup founder pawning family heirlooms to fund a comeback. But when Arab armies erupt from the desert in 634 CE under Khalid ibn al-Walid, the irony bites deeper. Your hard-won gains evaporating faster than morning dew in the Yarmouk Valley defeat of 636 CE, where Byzantine forces splinter amid sandstorms that blind and choke, the pain of retreat aching in your lungs as you cough up dust, empathy for the fallen whose bodies bake under the sun, a sad betrayal where exhausted troops face fresh zealots united by Islam's call. The psychological chill settling as provinces like Syria and Egypt fall by 642 CE. Winds carrying Miezan calls that drown Latin liturgies. Modern comparison resonates, it's akin to a tech giant recovering from a hack, only to face a viral competitor sweeping the market. Innovations outdated overnight by agile upstarts. The chill deepening as you flee to Anatolia's highlands, where the theme system fortifies borders but can't stem the demographic hemorrhage from the Antonine and Cyprian plagues' lingering shadows, mutated into the Justinianic scourge of 542 CE that killed perhaps 25 million, your skin crawling with imagined fleas as buboes swell on necks in crowded Constantinople, the sensory horror in the foul breath of the dying, rotten and sweet like overripe fruit, pain exploding in lymph nodes that throb incessantly, the shocking carts of corpses dumped in mass graves or sea, empathy overwhelming for Procopius's accounts of a world unmade, where Justinian's laws, the Code of 529 CE, compiling Roman jurisprudence bind wounds in legal tomes, but can't heal the body's ravages, a sad irony where the eternal emperor watches his realm halved by Yersinia Pestis, scholars debating if the plague originated in Egypt or Central Asia, uncertainty in climate data suggesting cooler temperatures aided its spread, like volcanic winters from 536 CE's eruptions veiling the sun in ash that starved crops and weakened immune systems. You huddle in Hagia Sophia's vast dome, completed in 537 CE under Justinian, the air echoing with chants that soar to the heavens but ground in the coughs of congregants, torchlight flickering on golden mosaics that mutate from imperial beacons into plague-haunted glows casting elongated shadows of the afflicted, the iron motifs in chained lamps swinging gently, their clank a reminder of bound codices preserving Ulpian's legal wisdom for posterity. The codes, Sostopol, 52 laws, a phoenix feather rising from Justinian's ambition to reconquer the West. You sailing with Belisarius to Vandal Africa in 533 CE, waves crashing cold against the hull, wet decks slick underfoot as you storm Carthage, the pain of arrow barrages from walls, shocking victory in months restoring grain flows but at costs that drain treasuries, empathy for defeated Vandals led in chains, a sad procession where Gelimer quotes Ecclesiastes on vanity amid his downfall, sarcasm notes Justinian's restoration, dragging into the Gothic War from 535 CE, you besieging Rome in 537 CE under Witiges, hunger gnawing as aqueducts cut leave throats parched, the sensory ordeal in rationed vinegar that sours your mouth, iron catapults hurling stones that thud into ancient walls, the absurd tidbit in how Belisarius used children's slings to fend archers, a fascinating improvisation debated as heroic or desperate, while Totila's recapture in 546 CE turns Italy into a wasteland, fields fallow and cities ghostly, the shocking plague hitting Constantinople mid-war, bodies stacked like cordwood, Justinian himself surviving buboes but watching dreams fester, academic uncertainty in if Theodora's death in 548 CE from cancer broke his spirit, or if her brothel past whispered in Procopius's secret history tainted his legacy as reformer or tyrant, debates on the text's satire versus truth. Modern aside, it's like a visionary leader pushing moonshots while pandemics tank the economy. Reconquest's bleeding budgets dry, the chill in realizing Eastern resilience forged in such fires, winds carrying Persian ashes that fertilize Byzantine soil for centuries. You stand on Constantinople's walls during the 626 CE siege, Avas's catapults launching boulders that shake the ground, your knees buckling from impacts, the pain of splintered wood grazing arms, shocking salvation when storms sink enemy fleets. The Virgin's icon credited in a twist of faith over meteorology, empathy for besieged civilians rationing bread amid rats, a sad siege where famine's breath rivals plague's foul exhalations, the iron gates holding firm as Heraclius raids east, his return with the cross in 630 CE, a triumph soured by Arab incursions, you clashing at Yarmouk where dust storms blind, the sensory chaos in swirling sands that choke breaths, pain of sword arms fatiguing in heat, shocking rout that loses the Levant, scholars debating if exhaustion from Persian wars doomed Byzantium or if Islamic unity was unstoppable, uncertainty in battle numbers 30,000 Byzantines versus varying Arab estimates, the torchlight dances in reconsecrated Hagia Sophia, flames reflecting on the cross restored, mutated into symbols of fragile revival, the wet wool drying into triumphant robes at celebrations, but winds whisper of losses, shadows of Persian ashes scattering, leaving a strange visual image of phoenix feathers drifting over ruined altars, a psychological chill questioning if laws bind wounds so tenuously. What foul breaths await to steal the living anew? The narrative deepens with Justinian's building frenzy. You labouring on the Sangarius bridge, stones heavy on your back, the sensory strain in calloused hands bleeding from ropes, pain of arches rising over rivers, shocking engineering that links provinces but taxes peasants dry, empathy for corvée workers chained to tasks, a sad servitude echoing slavery's chains, sarcasm in how great Builder's legacy includes the Nika riots of 532 CE, where chariot fans revolt. Nika, EV cries echoing as 30,000 die in hippodrome massacres, much like sports riots escalating to revolutions today. The absurd in Theodora's purple is the noblest shroud speech. Fascinating defiance debated as empowering or Procopius's invention to vilify her. Modern parallel like urban renewal projects sparking protests. The chill in riot smoke lingering. You ponder iconoclasm's prelude in Leo III's 726 CE ban. Winds carrying edicts that smash images. The sensory loss in blank walls. Pain of hammers on mosaics. Shocking schism with West. Empathy for iconophiles exiled. A sad art's destruction. Academic debates on if Arab influence or Old Testament inspired it. Uncertainty and origins. The phoenix rises but scorched. Ashes binding laws that endure. Foul breaths fading but threatening. The mood shifting if rebirths forge such fragile binds. What plagues lurk in the healed scars? The tale extends to theme systems rollout. New farming soldier allotments in Anatolia. Winds ploughing fields. The sensory earth under nails. Pain of dual-duty fighting Arabs. Shocking adaptation saving the East. Empathy for families on frontiers. A sad militarized life. Sarcasm in how Phoenix thrives on peasant backs, like conscription in endless wars. The absurd in Greek fire's formula lost to time. Fascinating secret debated as naphtha or quicklime. Modern aside like proprietary tech guarding edges. The visual of flames on water. A chill what secrets burn when ashes settle. The narrative to Basil Wee's Macedonian dynasty in 867 CE. You at court intrigues. Winds Byzantine with plots, the sensory silk swish, pain of assassinations, shocking Bulgarian slayers rise, empathy for usurped Michael III, a sad drunken end, academic debates on dynasty's golden age or illusion, uncertainty in prosperity measures, the phoenix soars, laws evolving, plague's breath a memory, but winds hint at Seljuk shadows, leaving a strange image of ashes swirling in dome's light. A question, if wounds bind so, what unravels next? You ever consider the deafening irony of an empire that spanned millennia, ending not with a heroic clash of swords, but the thunderous belch of Ottoman cannons pulverizing ancient walls? A bombardment so relentless that historians still argue if Mehmed II's victory in 1453 CE was inevitable engineering triumph, or the tragic culmination of Byzantine internal rot, where a city of 500,000 dwindled to mere thousands, defending its domes against 80,000 besiegers. Turning the final siege into a desperate requiem for Rome's last gasp, the cannon's roar shatters the pre-dawn hush first, a gut-wrenching boom that vibrates through your chest like the earth's own fury erupting from the massive basilica bombard forged by Urban the Hungarian. Its iron maw spewing stone balls that crash into Constantinople's Theodosian walls, with splintering cracks that echo in your ears long after. The air filling with the acrid bite of gunpowder smoke that stings your nostrils and coats your throat in a choking haze, your tongue assaulted by the iron taste once more, mutated from rusty chains into the scorching metallic residue of black powder that lingers like the bitter aftertaste of betrayal as you huddle behind crumbling battlements. The sensory struggle manifesting in the grit of pulverized mortar, embedding in your sweat-slick skin, abrasive and unrelenting under a tunic torn from weeks of rationed despair, wet from the spring rains that turn the ground into a slippery mire sucking at your boots with each frantic step, restrictive and treacherous as you dodge falling debris that thuds around you like judgment from the heavens. You man the walls alongside Constantine de Foncé and Palaeologus, the last emperor whose weary eyes reflect the torchlight flickering dimly in the gloom, mutated from earlier baptismal candles into desperate beacons lashed to parapets that cast elongated shadows of defenders like elongated ghosts stretching toward the Bosphorus, where Ottoman galleys chain the Golden Horn to prevent relief, their oars churning the water into froth that carries the distant chants of janissaries invoking Allah, the injustice gnawing at your gut like hunger from besieged stores running low on bread and salted fish, empathy overwhelming for the Genoese mercenaries under Giovanni Giustiniani, who fight valiantly despite wounds, their blood-soaking bandages that cling damp and sticky. A sad camaraderie where Orthodox and Catholic set aside schisms forged since the Fourth Crusade's betrayal in 1230. CE revisited here with a vengeful twist. As Latin indifference to pleas for aid leaves the East to face the Turk alone, the city's Latin Quarter echoing with regrets as volunteers like you patch breaches with whatever scraps remain, barrels and timbers piled hastily against the onslaught. The physical event builds over 7 agonizing weeks from April 1453 CE. You reloading culverins with trembling hands, raw from recoil, the pain shooting up your arms with each thunderous discharge that barely dents the Ottoman lines. Where Mehmed's engineers dig mines under the walls, the ground rumbling ominously beneath your feet like a subterranean beast awakening. The shocking collapse of a tower sending comrades tumbling into rubble, with cries cut short, their bodies buried in dust that billows up to obscure the moon. A creepy realism in how the night hides the mangled forms, but not the moans that pierce the lulls between cannonades. Sarcasm whispering that it's like a medieval arms race where Hungarian cannon makers switch sides for gold. Urban's defection, after Byzantine pay disputes, a fascinating tidbit debated by scholars as mercenary pragmatism or the spark that doomed the city. His monster gun requiring 60 oxen to move and firing only 7 times a day before overheating. Yet each shot craters defences built a millennium ago by Theodosius II, the winds carrying the sulphurous stench across the Marmara Sea where Venetian ships hesitate to break the boom. Their sails furled in political calculus that favours trade over crusade. You feel the tarnished edges of this final siege keenly, racing to counter a mine explosion that blasts a hole at the Blachernay section. Your lungs burning from smoke as you pour boiling oil on climbers scaling with hooks that scrape stone like claws. The pain of scalded hands blistering instantly. The shocking desperation in Constantine's pleas to hold the line. His armour dented from prior skirmishes reflecting the mutated torchlight like a fractured mirror of past glories, empathy deepening for the Varangian Guard. Norse descendants wielding axes and echoes of ancient federates who stand firm as the last Romans, their beards matted with blood and sweat, a sad vestige of Viking wanderers who once guarded emperors from Harald Hardrada to this nameless end. The psychological chill settling as Ottoman bashi-bazooks, irregulars promised loot surge through breaches in waves of frenzied yells that drown the bells tolling from Hagia Sophia, where civilians pray amid icons that weep miraculous tears, or so rumours claim. Academic uncertainty clouding if these weeping statues were condensation from fear-swept crowds or deliberate hoaxes to boost morale. Debates hinging on eyewitness accounts like those of George Francis, who chronicled the fall with heartbreaking detail, estimating 4,000 dead in the mayhem. Modern comparison strikes harshly. It's akin to a besieged startup fending off a corporate giant's takeover. Walls of patents crumbling under legal bombardments until the core team scatters. The founder's last stand a futile press release amid shareholder roots. The chill deepening as you fall back to the inner walls. Muscles aching from hauling crossbows that twang bolts into the throng. The wet stone slick underfoot from rain and blood that pools in irregular patterns reflecting the dawn's first light. The absurd tidbit gleaming in how Mehmed motivated troops with promises of 3 days' plunder, including virgins and boys, a fascinating Ottoman custom of lawful sack debated as motivational psychology or codified barbarity, drawing from steppe traditions that clashed with Byzantine sophistication. The winds shifting to carry the muezzin's call prematurely as Janissary's elite slave soldiers converted young breach the Kirka Portugate left ajar by accident or treason. Their curved scimitars flashing in the growing light that illuminates the dome of Hagia Sophia rising defiant yet doomed. You retreat to the church's vast interior, the air cooler and echoing with sobs of the trapped, mosaics of Christ Pantocrator gazing down impassively, as soldiers bar the doors with iron beams that groan under pounding from without, the sensory overload in the press of bodies nuns, nobles, and commoners, huddled together, their breaths mingling in a humid fog that condenses on golden tiles, your heart racing as legends of angelic intervention whisper among the faithful, promising the city's salvation at the last moment. But reality crashes in with the doors splintering under rams, the pain exploding as a stray splinter gouges your cheek, blood warm and sticky trickling down, the shocking influx of Ottomans who slaughter indiscriminately at first before Mehmed halts the massacre to preserve his prize, empathy surging for the enslaved thousands led away in chains that clank mournfully, a sad procession where scholars and priests mingle with artisans, their knowledge soon to scatter or serve new masters, the injustice aching as the cross yields to the crescent. Hagia Sophia's conversion to a mosque that very day with prayers rugs unrolled over Christian icons. Sarcasm drips amid the tears, the eternal Rome, outlasting its western twin by a millennium, felled by gunpowder's rude interruption, like a venerable institution disrupted by tech startups that render traditions obsolete overnight, the psychological chill intensifying as you witness Constantine V's last charge, stripping his purple to die anonymously among soldiers, his body never found amid the heaps, a legendary end debated by scholars as heroic anonymity or convenient myth to inspire resistance. Uncertainty in accounts like those of Critoboulos, who served Mehmed yet mourned the fall, estimating the city's population at a mere 50,000 defending against overwhelming odds. The winds howl triumphant through the breached walls, carrying the Sultan's entry on horseback into the dome where he recites Persian poetry on fallen grandeur. The sensory shift in the cool vastness now echoing with Turkish commands. Wet footprints from blood and rain tracking across marbles that once hosted emperors from Justinian to this last Paleologus. The iron gates swinging wide for looters who cart away relics the mandible of John the Baptist. Fragments of the true cross, mutated symbols of faith scattered to bazaars or European collectors. The absurd tidbit in how a snail purportedly from Noah's Ark was among the treasures. A fascinating relic debated as authentic or monastic hoax to attract pilgrims. Modern aside, it's like a historic landmark turned theme park, where conquerors rebrand the narrative while tourists gawk at the ruins. The chill in realizing Ottoman sultans styled themselves Khazar-o-Rum, Caesars of Rome, perpetuating the legacy in Islamic garb. Shadows of shattered domes lengthening over the Bosphorus where galleys once chained now float free under crescent flags. You wander the sacked streets as silence descends. The visual image strange in how minarets will soon flank the dome. A hybrid silhouette against the sunset where Byzantine gold fades to Ottoman green. The psychological chill leaving you in silent darkness, pondering if empires echo so faintly at the end. What voids swallow the thunder when the last dome shatters? The wind down begins as the cannon's echoes soften into distant rumbles. Your footsteps slowing on the cooling stones where shards of mosaic catch the fading light, like scattered stars dimming one by one. The air growing still and gentle, carrying only the soft sigh of the sea lapping against ancient quays. Waves murmuring lullabies to the weary walls that lean as if ready to rest after centuries of vigil. Your breaths deepening, each inhale drawing in the quiet hush of empty halls, where once emperors paced in golden robes, now dissolved into dust motes dancing lazily in the twilight filtering through cracked domes, the torchlight flickering one last time before guttering out, its warm glow retreating into memory as shadows lengthen and blend into a comforting veil, enveloping you in the serene embrace of history's fade, the environment dissolving around you, silent halls emptying of ghosts, empty chairs gathering dust in forgotten chambers, soft breathing syncing with the rhythm of a world unwinding, gentler metaphors unfolding like petals closing at dusk, the Empire's grand narrative, whispering its final secrets into the night, leaving you adrift in peaceful slumber, the last line fading like a breath, and as the echoes dissolve, sleep claims you wholly,